Hello and welcome to the newest MLB podcast at dailyfantasycafe.com, the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm your host, Josh Shepardson, and you can follow me on Twitter where I post as @bchad50. And yesterday we got a nice little appetizer to kick off the MLB season with 3 games. Pirates defeated the Cardinals, followed up by the Blue Jays defeating the Rays, and capped off Royals winning their contest with the New York Mets. But today is the true opening day, the big day. We got 12 games on tap. It's important to note that on DraftKings, their main slate, we'll call it the main slate, the slate with the biggest prize pools is only the 7 games that are played before the 7:05 start time. So that's going to kick off Eastern time, and that's a 7-game slate. So you're not going to get Clayton Kershaw in that. You're not going to get some Zach Greinke in that. Some others as well. But FanDuel's main slate is the full 12-game slate, starting with the 1:05 start time. Do note that if you're playing across the sites, that one is the 12-game slate, one is just the 7-game slate. DraftKings does offer some late games. They do also offer some full-game slates. Prize, for instance, is significantly smaller in that. So definitely worth noting if you're going to be playing in the games. I am going to run through every single game, though, for you here. But if, for instance, you're checking out the cheat sheets today, which you should be, especially if you're a subscriber to our offerings right now, the DraftKings cheat sheets in particular focuses on that main slate, and the FanDuel ones do as well, but there is a difference in the size of those main slates. But without further ado, let's jump right into the games. The first contest on tap tomorrow is the Houston Astros and New York Yankees. It's going to be a contest pitched by Dallas Keuchel, the reigning American League Cy Young Award winner, and Masahiro Tanaka, who followed up his excellent stateside debut in 2014 with a strong showing in 2015. Really, any concerns that gamers, that baseball fans had about Tanaka pitching through the partially torn UCL in his elbow, those were pretty much alleviated by his showing last year was excellent. Did have some issues with the long ball, and that put some Houston Astros hitters in play today. Guys like Colby Rasmus, Luis Valbuena, Jason Castro. If you're just looking to chase a tater in GPPs, looking for some salary relief across either site, those guys can certainly put a charge into the ball. Tanaka did struggle giving up home runs last year. Yankee Stadium very favorable for power hitting for left-handed batters, for all batters really, but especially for lefties. Guys to keep in mind. Carlos Correa, a stud at shortstop, 4,300. Definitely pricey at FanDuel, but he's a steal at 4,100 at DraftKings. Really an easy guy to slot in, even if you are using, say, Max Scherzer as your ace on DraftKings, and really ponying up for that most expensive starting pitcher there, the only 5-figure ace. Certainly easy to get. Correa's $4,100 salary on there. Doesn't hold a platoon advantage, but is really an electric talent. Can steal bases, can hit for power, can do it all. Great ballpark, great lineup. Jose Altuve is a guy that I really won't be using much of. Really should be reserved for GPP onlys and is part of stacks. Much better against left-handed pitchers than right-handed pitchers. And Masahiro Tanaka does not allow many stolen bases. Really tough to run on, right out of Jose Altuve's value as a big base stealer. George Springer, another power hitter who could take advantage of Tanaka's shortcomings with the long ball. Carlos Gomez, coming off of a season that was a down year for him. Do expect him to run quite a bit, but not today. Again, Tanaka really good at controlling the running game. Power was down, not as bullish as some are on his pop returning. Is in the right ballpark to do it, facing possibly the right pitcher to do it, but Tanaka really good. Not looking to just use any and all hitters from the Astros against him. I'd mostly reserve that for GPP plays and home run chasing, with the exception, of course, of Correa, as I noted. On the Yankees side of things, like Aaron a bit, especially at DraftKings and especially in GPPs, the cheapest of prices, but not terribly expensive at 2,700 on FanDuel. He does run 3,300 on DraftKings. Not bad price. Really hit left-handed pitching hard last year in a breakout campaign, and has done so really throughout his big league career. Has 261 plate appearances against lefties in the bigs, 175 ISO, 354 WOBA, 125 WRC plus. So he can hit left-handed pitching pretty well. Obviously, you don't really want to go after Dallas Keuchel with a lot of guys, but for that same reason, he's going to be low-owned. Nice contrarian pick if you're looking to swerve away from the crowd. The only other name on the Yankees that I'm considering is Alex Rodriguez. Elite power, right-handed. So while Keuchel is very good against righties, he's downright death on lefties. So you're not going to want to use any left-handed batters from the Yankees against him. But A-Rod can put a charge into the ball and does bat right-handed. So while Keuchel's very good against righties, can occasionally be had by them. So A-Rod's in consideration. To share as a switch hitter, you could consider him, but I'm not going to be going that route. First base is just too deep to do that. And the rest of the outfield, not sure who's going to get the day off, whether it's going to be Ellsbury or Gardner to get Hicks that start, but Girardi's basically already indicated last weekend that Hicks will be in there. He's going to be filling that Chris Young role this year, so I do think that he's a nifty little play if you're looking to be contrarian there. Keuchel the pitchers, price considered, I actually like to 9,500 on FanDuel. Not a bad price tag on DraftKings either at 8,800. I do think there are some other options at DraftKings. You got $8,600 Corey Kluber, who we'll talk about a little bit later in the podcast. But the Astros, they're boom or bust. They strike out quite a bit. They do have some boom in that lineup, as I noted with some of the guys that you can consider targeting in GPPs. But Tanaka, good strikeout upside. And in GPPs, you're willing to embrace that volatility. Wouldn't consider using him in cash games, though. Moving on to the next start time of the day, that's going to be the Giants traveling to Milwaukee to face the Brewers. Giants big favorites according to Pinnacle, minus 170 on the money line. It's Madison Bumgarner squaring off with Willie Peralta. Bumgarner, if he wasn't sharing the slate with Clayton Kershaw, and sharing the early slate with Mad Max against a bad Braves team, would probably be the top pitcher on the slate. But, I mean, this is opening day. A lot of really good pitchers. Bumgarner really strong, but priced too close to Kershaw to really consider him much of a cash games option in FanDuel games. And you can use him, though, as a strong cash games play or as your ace on DraftKings, since that is only a 7-game main slate and does not include Clayton Kershaw. Like Bumgarner quite a bit. He's a model consistency year to year. Really ranks in the top 10 last year across the board, whether strikeout rate, walk rate, FIP, xFIP, whatever ERA estimator you like. He's a flat-out dominant pitcher. Brewers are in the middle of a rebuild. Lineup looks a little bit different than last year, but they struck out quite a bit last year. Were a well below average offense. Don't expect them to the. As for the hitters for the Giants, this is one of my favorite lineups to stack. Lots of options up and down. Really like those lefties against Willie Peralta. Peralta's been battered by left-handed batters throughout his career. That was evident last year as well. So you got guys like Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford, Joe Panic, even Nard Span, whose price I don't love, but I think that makes him a contrarian play. And he's I don't want to say a must in stacks, but it's a leadoff hitter for the Giants. Certainly a big piece of that offense. Great park factors at Miller Park for lefties and righties alike. So if you're looking at using Buster Posey, assuming he does play today, which is the expectation, has been battling the flu, but it doesn't sound like he's in any danger of missing the contest. Even the righties get some nice park factors. They're not really looking to use Willie Peralta at all. Giants offense should give him fits. Giants are big favorites and expected to score some runs. Peralta wasn't particularly good last year. Offensively, not really looking to pick guys against Madison Bumgarner either. But if you are, you're doing it to be contrarian in GPP, so you might as well grab some power. Guy like Chris Carter comes to mind at just $2,500 on FanDuel, and he checks in at $3,500 on DraftKings, where it's a little bit less appealing because you do have some other cheap options with pop as well. But again, you're looking to be contrarian here. You're looking to get Carter can hit the ball a long way. Does have a propensity to strike out, but you're chasing that one pitch, that mistake from Bumgarner that he can put in the seats. Not looking at anybody from second or third base for the Brewers. Jonathan VR. Against a weaker left-handed pitcher, might consider him as a punt, but Bumgarner obviously doesn't qualify there. Really, the only other consideration here is going to be Ryan. He's a pricey consideration because he has been so good against left-handed pitching throughout his career, and Bumgarner is just too good a lefty for me to feel good about spending up for Braun, even as a contrarian play. I mean, if you're going to enter a ton of GPP lineups, maybe you could fire a single bullet or two. That's about a ringing endorsement as you're going to get from me for Braun against Bumgarner. Next up is a 3:05 start time for the Minnesota Twins at the Baltimore Orioles. This is expected to be one of the higher scoring games. Pinnacle has the over-under total on this contest at 8.5 runs. Twins check in as small underdogs. Tillman in the O's, -130. Irvin Santana, +120 on the money line. Not really considering either pitcher. Perhaps you could consider Irvin Santana as an SP2 on GPP rosters at 6,700 on DraftKings. He did finish the season well. The Orioles do have some guys with some swing and miss in their lineup, and the righties not necessarily going to have it easy against Santana with his fastball slider pitch repertoire that he leans on pretty heavily on FanDuel. Just 5,600, so you could really do whatever you want to with your lineup, but there is another cheap name that I like a lot more that I'll be highlighting later, so not really considering him there. Chris Tillman got knocked around last year, almost a de facto opening day starter for the Orioles just because they don't have anybody who stands out as a true ace on that staff. Kind of a lot of middle to back of the rotation guys that are just going to be tasked with soaking up innings. He was battered by right-handed batters last year, and that makes me like new addition Byung-Ho Park quite a bit at first base. Like FanDuel and DraftKings, like Brian Dozier on FanDuel at 3,100. Like him for different reasons on DraftKings, as he's the most expensive second baseman, really going to be super low owned at $4,700. But big power against right-handed pitching, especially last year. That pairs well with Tillman's struggles against righties last year. Dozier has some substantial upside, good lineup spot. A lot of reasons to like him, even though he's not holding the platoon advantage. Knows he's a lefty masher, but did put up some good numbers against righties last year. From the Orioles side of things, going back through the positions, Weeder's not a terrible play at catcher. Will be the starting catcher on opening day. Has been historically better against lefties than righties, but Santana can occasionally give up some hits and some offensive goodies to left-handed batters. Again, that fastball slider profile does lend itself to lefties getting the better of them. As a left-handed batter, switch hitter, but hitting lefty against the righty, Santana, Weeder's going to be treated to some nice ballpark factors at home. Speaking of left-handed batters and those park factors, got to like Chris Davis, got to like Pedro Alvarez. Davis expensive on DraftKings, more affordable, but still pricey at 3,700 on FanDuel, but a little bit easier to squeeze in there. 5,100, first base and outfield eligible on power. And I mean, you know the drill with Chris Davis. If it's clicking, he could reach the seats twice. If it's not, he could give you a golden sombrero, not give you a whole lot of anything. Really, for that reason, he's more of a GPP consideration. He's joined by Chris Davis light, Pedro Alvarez, offseason acquisition from the Pittsburgh Pirates, who opted to non-tender him. Ballparks, really like the price tag, $2,800 on FanDuel. Also cheap on DraftKings, where he is just $3,600. Affordable to chase that power in GPPs, and he's certainly got power for days. Ranks amongst the league's elite in average home run and fly ball distance. Nice exit velocity numbers, according to the guys at Baseball Savant. Can really put a charge into the ball. So, gotta like him. Second base, Jonathan Scope. Another power hitter, another power chase option. Cheap on FanDuel at 2,400, not cheap on DraftKings at 4,100. Like him much more on FanDuel as a result, but has a very aggressive approach that fits better in GPP lineups than cash games. Going to be some more volatility with him than say your hitters that are willing to work some walks and put the ball in play a little bit more. But again, another guy who can hit the ball a long way, good average distance on home runs and fly balls last year. So kind of like that power. Looking at the hot corner, Manny Machado is a stud, one of the best hitters in the game. Love him at both sides. Love him in all game types. Don't care that Santana can be tough on righties. Gotta like Machado's upside. Pretty high floor as well, since he just can do it across the board. Stole 20 bases last year, hit for a lot of power, and he holds a reverse platoon split, so has been better against right-handed pitchers in his career than lefties, and substantially better at that. Trevor Plouffe might be a sneaky play on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Third base, not the deepest position on opening day. Got some matchups that maybe aren't favorable for some guys that you'd normally be considering. Like him a lot more on FanDuel than DraftKings. 4,000 is a little bit steep for my liking on DraftKings, but 2,500, a nice price on FanDuel, and a guy that can take advantage of Chris Tillman's shortcomings against right-handed batters. Stop. Going to pass on this position. Eduardo Escobar to the year. Do like him more against left-handed pitching than righties. And going to the outfield, well, it depends on what site you're on, and I guess I should revert back to third base. Miguel Sano, third base eligible on DraftKings, outfield eligible on FanDuel. He is one of the elite power hitters in the game. Doesn't matter that he's just entering his second season. He basically has shown out like Giancarlo Stanton-esque. I mean, he was second to him in exit velocity, according to Baseball Savant, among guys that got 100 at-bat more. Also second in hard hit ball rate, according to Fangraphs, among batters who tallied at least 300 plate appearances last year. Again, second only to Giancarlo Stanton. So this guy's hitting lasers, hit the ball a long way, and I hate to beat this dead horse, but Chris Tillman was trash against right-handed batters last year. Love me some Sano. Not worried about the price tag at either side. I think he's a worthwhile investment. Not a big fan of Adam Jones against Ervin Santana. Santana is pretty good against right-handed batters. 3,100 might be appealing if you're going to on FanDuel if you're going to stack Orioles. Less appealing at 4,700 on DraftKings. But again, if you're running a stack, Jones is a pretty integral part of that Orioles offense. So certainly got to consider him. Other options in the outfield that I like, or I should say other option in the outfield that I like, is Byron Buxton. Likely to hit ninth for the Twins. Really a very toolsy player. Fairly cheap on both sides. Hasn't really done it at the big league level yet, but hit well in the upper minors last year. Ranked second to Corey Seager on basically every major prospect list across the internet from any reputable site. And when the light goes on, it's going to be very bright for Buxton, and that salary is going to go up. How early in the season that's going to happen, or if it happens this year at all, is up for debate. But that's the type of skill set that I don't mind rolling the dice on, especially in GPPs and especially as salary relief on a day when you've got guys like Kershaw and Bumgarner and Mad Max getting the ball. I take a chance on him against one of the weaker starting pitchers on opening day. Other than that, not a lot of options that I'm looking at in this game. Moving on to the game in Texas, Seattle is going to be playing their American League West Division rival at 4:05 Eastern Time. And a lot of guys that I like in this contest. I mean, you could start with coming off of a down year by his standards. ERA estimators like his numbers a lot. But on today, really the secondary, maybe even a tertiary key option at best for me. Not looking at him in cash games. Cole Hamels is opposing him. Mariners did some damage against left-handed pitchers last year. Not really considering Hamels in any game types today. Felix's price tag isn't even exceptional on DraftKings or FanDuel to really get the juices flowing. Rangers can put some runs on the board, and we did see some meltdown starts from Felix last year. I'd like to see him do a little bit this year, maybe get some pitch FX data under his belt to feel before I feel comfortable rolling him out on a slate where there's just no shortage of aces to pick from. Looking at the catchers, Chris Iannetta makes for a nifty play against Cole Hamels. Probably going to hit down order, but this is a guy who's crushed left-handed pitching since 2013. He's got 388 appearances against left-handed pitchers, 196 ISO, strong 379 OBP, 364 WOBA, and 138 WRC plus. So those are really good numbers. Like him at $2,400 on FanDuel. Not a bad pivot in GPPs off of Devin Mesoraco at 3,300. The catchers are really tightly clustered price-wise on DraftKings, so not going to get a lot of salary relief there. And then on FanDuel, a lot of really cheap options. So Iannetta might slip through the cracks. Not a guy that's probably on a ton of radars, but good park factors there. Moving on to first base, while I'm not using King Felix, not thrilled about using hitters against him either. Prince Fielder coming off of a really nice season and proving that he could rebound from that neck surgery, but didn't hit for a ton of power. Not really looking to fill a deep offensive position like first base with him against King Felix. Adam Lind will probably sit since he should be in a first base platoon. Not really any other options at first base to use from the M's. So moving on to second base, Rougned Odor. If he were to hit in a more prominent lineup spot, I would like him. But most of last year, he hit down order. Probably not going to force his manager's hand to move him up the order. It's a little bit later in the season. Most likely to hit down order now. I can consider him in GPPs, especially if you're looking at maybe a mini stack or some hooks against King Felix. Want to take advantage of the low ownership that the Rangers facing him is going to create. Robinson Cano much better against righties than lefties. His full season numbers last year were hurt by his early season struggles while he was ill. But, I mean, this is a guy that you don't really want to pay up for against left-handed pitching. Pass on Cano. Seager had a good year against left-handed pitching, but doesn't have a track record of being an above-average contributor against him. No thank you at third base. Beltre and Felix, we know that they're friends. We've seen the playfulness between the two. Not reason enough for me to use him in a righty-righty matchup against one of the better pitchers in the game. Shortstop is a position where you can consider somebody from this game. That's Ketel Marte. Good rookie season with the Mariners. Nice punt option on DraftKings or FanDuel. Not exceptionally expensive, $3,600 on DraftKings and $2,600 on FanDuel. Again, Cole Hamels, good pitcher, but good offensive ballpark. Marte did hit left-handed pitching better than right-handed pitching in the minors. That wasn't the case last year in the majors, but the switch hitter, especially if he were to hit leadoff, I do think Aoki is going to be given the leadoff job here today against the lefty. But if Marte does happen to slot leadoff, that would certainly help his case for usage. But not much more than a punt. The outfield is where you're going to see some nice options. Nelson Cruz is the big ticket option here, $4,000 on FanDuel and $4,700 on DraftKings. If you're not using Clayton Kershaw in your cash games and you're spinning down to perhaps that Greinke or Raisel Iglesias or someone else at pitcher, Cruz really easy to budget for on FanDuel. They're going to use Kershaw. DraftKings, if you're not using Mad Max and you're using a different combination of two sub-5 figure pitchers, also really easy, even at a $4,700 price tag to fit in. You don't usually go out of your way to pick on Cole Hamels, but Nelson Cruz has been from another planet against left-handed pitching. Since 2013, 470 plate appearances, 406 OBP, 262 ISO, 419 WOBA, 170 WRC plus, and he bested those last against lefties, so he can really rake. Gotta love Nelson Cruz. Shin-Soo Choo, very good against righties last year, but again, not going on my way to pick on King Felix. 3,400 affordable on FanDuel, 45 affordable on DraftKings, but again, outfield's deep. Probably going to pass on him. Maybe you can consider him as a single bullet or two in GPPs. And the other option that I really like in this game in the outfield, though, is Franklin Gutierrez, $2,400 on FanDuel, $2,800 on DraftKings. After a season out of baseball, came back and absolutely crushed the ball, hammered lefties a little bit better than righties, has been better against lefties throughout his career. But the fact that he hit righties last year is worth noting because unlike most platoon outfielders, it does reduce the likelihood of him getting lifted for a pinch hitter late. His defense should also keep him in the lineup. So might get your full complement of at-bats there from Franklin Gutierrez as a nice punt at a really affordable salary. And again, Cole Hamels not a bad pitcher per se at all, but on a day where there are so many good pitchers, it's a little bit easier to stomach using anyone against him, especially a guy like Gutierrez who just raked last year. Moving on to the next contest, got a 4:10 start time for the Philadelphia Phillies at the Cincinnati Reds. And really the name to know here is Raisel Iglesias. RotoWire reports that he's probably going to have about a 90-pitch limit since he was handled with kid gloves a little bit here in the spring. 90 pitches, plenty to carve up the Phillies and get yourself a quality start, or at least get yourself in a position to net a W. Reds are big betting favorites here, according to Pinnacle Sports. And I mean, Iglesias was just brilliant as a starter. Minus 159, the Reds are currently. Phillies offense is putrid, was worst in baseball according to WOBA and WRC Plus against righties last year. Don't project them to be much better this year. Iglesias ERA estimators liked his work a lot more than his ERA. Granted, a 4 ERA as a starter is nothing terrible. The ERA estimators were much nicer. 27% plus strikeout rate. Really can carve up lineups. Absolutely love his price tag of $6,400 on FanDuel. He is my second favorite cash games option. I mean, cat's out of the bag. I've been name dropping Clayton Kershaw all show. We'll get to him in a bit, but I mean, no secret, he's the top cash games option. But if you're looking for a different way to go, maybe looking to pay up for big hitters, $6,400. He's a full $4,600 cheaper than Kershaw on FanDuel. And DraftKings don't love his price tag, $8,900, but that price tag should make him a lower owned option, which obviously adds to the appeal in GPPs. And I mean, it's hard not to like a matchup with the bad Phillies lineup. As far as the hitters that I would consider using in this game, a few from the Reds, starting with Devin Mesoraco, my favorite cash games play at DraftKings, second favorite cash games play in terms of catchers, I should say, at FanDuel. Another really good cheap option at catcher that I'll be getting to here shortly. But coming off of a mostly lost season, but he is starting on opening day. He raked in the spring, and he had a breakout 2014 campaign. Also gets arguably the softest starting pitching assignment on opening day, facing Jeremy Hellickson. Hellickson is not a #1 starter. He's a back of the rotation starter that's on a bad team. Righties, lefties, anyone who swings a bat seems to have some success there against Jeremy Hellickson. So liking Mesoraco, liking the home ballpark, liking the price tag. At first base, you got to love Joey Votto. He's coming off of a monstrous offensive campaign, one of the most patient hitters in the game, gets on base at a high clip. Price tag is very easy to stomach at $3,900 on FanDuel and $4,600 on DraftKings. He'll be a mainstay in most of my cash games lineups today. Really, really like what Joey Votto can do, whether it's getting on base, reaching the seats, and I mean, a guy like Jeremy Hellickson has almost no shot. On a game of volatility, Joey Votto is one of the most stable and static statistical producers in the game. Gotta love what he can do. Not a huge fan of the second base. Brandon Phillips, $2,400, not the worst price tag in the world on FanDuel. $38, a little bit less appealing on DraftKings. He's in the twilight of his career. You can use him because he is a great American ballpark and does have a soft lineup or a soft pitching matchup, but still not a huge fan. Third base, Mike Franco or playing anybody other than Raisel Iglesias, I'd love him coming off of a big spring. Maybe you can fire a bullet on him in GPPs because power is real. Good ballpark. Maybe he even has some success against the relievers. But Iglesias really tough on right-handed batters. I think you got some other options at first base, especially with 12 games on the FanDuel tap. With just 7 on the DraftKings tap, maybe it's a little bit more appealing to use him there. Shortstop, not using anybody from this contest. In the outfield, Jay Bruce, bad year last year, but $2,700 on FanDuel and checks in at $4,100 on DraftKings. of the two sites. Got to like him a little bit better on FanDuel, even with the fuller slate and obviously the depth of the outfield. But 2,700 much easier to swallow than his salary over at DraftKings. Not really looking at anybody else in this contest. So that's going to wrap it up for that contest. Moving on to the Washington-Atlanta game. This one's in Atlanta, but the visiting Nationals, huge betting favorites. Max Scherzer is your guy in cash games on DraftKings. There is no Kershaw in the main slate. Again, 7-game slate, not including the 7:05 contest for later for their biggest prize pool contest. If you are playing in the all-day slate, Kershaw the better play. But Max Scherzer, $12,300 on DraftKings. But some cheap-ish SP2 options, and more importantly, a lot of cheap hitters that can easily offset his price tag, including teammate Bryce Harper, who is inexplicably priced at just $4,500 on DraftKings. He might as well come auto-filled into those lineups. In cash games, in GPPs, if you're not using Bryce Harper, that is a foolish fade. Julio Teheran was awful against left-handed batters last year. Bryce Harper absolutely annihilated all pitching, but was especially awesome against righties. Get him in your lineups. Get him in your lineups on FanDuel as well, for that matter. 4,800. You can get him in your Clayton Kershaw lineups. It's not that difficult. There are some value plays that you can get in with him to make that pretty easy. Harper, my favorite hitting option on the day. Going out on a limb, picking him. But Max Scherzer, GPP only play for me on FanDuel just because the full slate does include Clayton Kershaw, and he's not that much cheaper. But DraftKings top cash games play, also strong GPP option. Big strikeout upside, facing a really bad Braves lineup that struggled last year and doesn't project to be much better, if any better, this year. He is a minus 185 favorite according to Pinnacle, so got to like him quite a bit. Julio Teheran, I like him on DraftKings as a sneaky SP2 in GPPs. Obviously, he's opposing Max Scherzer, so that's going to drive down his ownership. His overall numbers last year, not impressive, also going to drive down his ownership. This guy who has a substantial home road split for his career that extended to last year, but he was really good at home last year, even in a down year. The Nationals did disappoint as an overall offense last year, or as an overall team last year. Teheran probably not going to get a lot of run support. A little easier to stomach not getting a W on DraftKings if you can limit the hits and walks. And walks really aren't an issue for Teheran. So if you can limit the base runners, get a quality start, even if he doesn't get the W, can pay off his $8,100 salary on DraftKings. And FanDuel, because I do like Raziel Iglesias so much, do like another cheap arm in Masahiro Tanaka in GPPs. Less inclined to use him at 7,300 there. First base, not really looking at either Ryan Zimmerman or Freeman outside of stacks. And obviously the only stack I'm considering in this one is going to be the national side of things. It is a strong stack, though, but as an individual player, not looking at Ryan Zimmerman. Daniel Murphy, strong play at the keystone position at both sides. Also third base eligible on DraftKings. Like him, can hit righties. Teheran struggled with lefties last year. And second base, not really a super appealing position on opening day. So like Murphy a little bit, and by a little bit, I mean quite a bit relative to his peers, but a little bit relative to all hitters. Anthony Rendon, not a great matchup with Teheran. Teheran's very tough on right-handed batters, but Rendon for his career has been an above-average hitter against righties. Don't think it's a bad option to stack, to mini stack or hook with Bryce Harper. Should hit in the 2-hole. If Dusty Baker's a fool and hits him down order, does hurt his value. Makes for an easy pivot to same priced Alex Rodriguez on FanDuel. But I like Rendon in this one as a $2,800 value play on FanDuel. Not a bad price on DraftKings either at $3,700. Second base and third base eligible there. Shortstop, not really considering anyone in this contest. Obviously, Harper in the outfield is the play. Not really anybody else that I'm in love with in this contest. Again, outside of stacks. If you're looking at stacking this contest, the Nationals do have some stack appeal, so do consider that. Next up is Boston at Cleveland in a 4-time, and we got two aces on the hill on this one, David Price and Corey Kluber. The Indians were actually surprisingly pretty good against left-handed pitching last year, but Michael Brantley on the DL to start the year. Ryan Rayburn no longer there. He's in Colorado. So that offense could take a hit against lefties, but if you get a bounce-back campaign from Yan Gomes, some other things, maybe this offense doesn't tail off too much. Not a huge fan of David Price's price tag, though. Indians do have some decent hitters in their lineup. He's also opposed by Corey Kluber, which is going to make it tough to get a W. Kluber, 9,600 on FanDuel. Don't love his price tag there. But I am a fan of his price tag on DraftKings at 8,600. One of my favorite SP2 options. I mean, he's priced outside the top 5 at SP despite having another really good year. Wasn't his Cy Young Award-winning quality season last year, like it was in 2014, but still really good. One of the better strikeout pitchers in the game. Red Sox offense was middle of the pack to worst last year, depending on what offensive metrics you like. There might be some bounce back and some guys like Hanley Ramirez. Probably not Panda, who's going to be opening the bench on the bench with Travis Shaw starting at the hot corner for them. But overall, like Kluber, even though the Red Sox do have some offensive threats in their lineup, I think he's a strong SP2. But on the single pitcher site, FanDuel, not a huge fan. Not really using anybody at catcher. Not going out of my way to use any hitters from this contest at all, for that matter. The pitch balance too great, and you just don't really have any platoon advantages to be gained here. I mean, your Red Sox hitters that do hold the platoon advantage, guys like David Ortiz, he's at first base. You got other options that are certainly better when considering their matchups. Corey Kluber is very good, and while Ortiz is very good against right-handed pitching, I'll pick on a softer pitcher than Kipnis, especially at a deep position like first base. Xander Bogaerts, better against lefties than righties. Again, not really going out of my way to pick on Corey Kluber. And with these Indians hitters, don't really left-handed hitters and like guys like Jason Kipnis. Not really looking to use him against David Price. Gomes, coming off of a down year, not looking to use him against an ace. Carlos Santana, switch hitter. Can hit, but again, first base is deep. Why would you pick on David Price other than to be contrarian? Francisco Lindor might be the exception to the rule, but you got some decent price points on shortstops. I'm not paying $3,800 on DraftKings for him. And at 33, it is an appealing price tag, but you got some cheap options, guys like Brandon Crawford that I like. So I'll be passing on Lindor. Moving on to the game that I've been kind of teasing all show. Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers travel to San Diego, 7:05 start time. Kershaw is your cash games horse, also a strong GPP play. The guy is still the best pitcher on the planet. I don't care that he did not win the National League Cy Young Award last year. Guy led the way in most major pitching categories, misses a ton of bats, doesn't walk many hitters, facing a Padres lineup that was bad against lefties last year and will be likely to be worse this year with no Justin Upton. There's just so many factors working in his favor, including the fact that he's pitching in pitcher-friendly San Diego's Petco Park, a huge betting favorite according to Pinnacle. I mean, not the biggest betting favorite, but pretty darn close, checking in as a minus 180 favorite. Is opposing Tyson Ross. It's not like he's facing a cupcake pitcher, but, I mean, it's got a 5.5 run over-under total, and Kershaw's minus 180 favorite. That tells you all you need to know about what odds makers are thinking of the scoring in this one. So you can go ahead and write off any Padres hitters. I know Derek Norris can hit lefties. No, thank you. Clayton Kershaw is not your average lefty. He is from another planet. Not using Ross, not even to be contrarian. I'll go ahead and pass on him. Adrian Gonzalez is an interesting consideration because Ross can be had by left-handed batters. But first base is pretty deep. Not a huge fan of him there. Chase Utley, 2,400. Not a big fan, but he is a lefty. If you are desperate to punt second base or looking to be contrarian in GPPs, with Kendrick on the DL to start the year, got to figure that Utley's going to get some playing time. If he happens to get a premium lineup spot, which he really doesn't deserve, but if he's a table setter for sitting second for them, could be an interesting play. The other guys that I'm considering in this one are Corey Seager, 3,500 at FanDuel. Really like him a lot. Raked last year, he was named the top prospect in the game by Major League Baseball, Baseball Prospectus, Baseball America. Basically, any reputable prospect liked Corey Seager as the best prospect, moved him ahead of Byron Buxton, really raked in his big league debut last year, and got to like him as a left-handed batter against regardless of where he hits in the order. far as the outfield goes, the guy that I'm looking at is Carl Crawford, who is the primary beneficiary of the loss of Andre Ethier to the disabled list. Crawford just $2,300 on FanDuel. And what I have the matchup with Derek Norris and Tyson Ross, both ranked second at their respective positions in most stolen bases allowed. Crawford, not a spring chicken anymore, but he was successful on the base paths last year in his limited playing time. I do think if he gets on, it's off to the races. And we're talking about a guy who could steal multiple bases in the season opener. And got to like that upside at just $2,300. Nobody sleeping on the fact that Ross and Norris are easy to run on, but I do think that there is some potential for Crawford to go under-owned today. Next up is Toronto and Tampa, who will be playing their second games of the season, respectively. Drew Smyly against R.A. Dickey. You will never find me starting a left-handed pitcher outside of maybe Clayton Kershaw to be contrarian, which tells you all you need to know about how good this Blue Jays offense is against left-handed pitching. It's not contrarian ever to use Clayton Kershaw. In that instance, it might be the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. But Drew Smyly is not Clayton Kershaw. That means he is not a consideration against the lefty mashing Blue Jays. R.A. Dickey, $6,400. Just doesn't have the upside for me to feel great about using him in any type of game type. Back up the strikeouts. At catcher, you got Russell Martin. Does hit lefties fairly well. Can use him, but I don't think I think you can find better options for under $3,000 at the catcher position in the main slate on FanDuel. At first base, Edwin Encarnacion. That's a guy that you can consider, but like Votto better. Like the idea of paying up to Paul Goldschmidt better. So Edwin, probably more of a single bullet in GPPs for me. Don't necessarily think you spend that much in cash games either. At second base, Logan Forsythe against the knuckleballer. You could use him, but I'm not a huge fan. He does hit leadoff, so that is another feather in his cap. But again, I think you got some better options today. Donaldson is a lefty killer. No secret there. $4,800. The hardest to budget for, but do like some other options since this one is in Tampa Bay. Not the offensive environment that the Rogers Center is. And Drew Smyly has closed his platoon gap against right-handed and left-handed pitching compared to what it was earlier in his career. I mean, not enough to completely dissuade me from using Josh Donaldson in some contests. But again, I think if I'm spending big ticket items, like a few guys better, Troy Tulowitzki at $3,600 is appealing against the lefty. Hit a home run in the season opener. So that's going to drive his ownership up just a touch because, I mean, we know how the daily fantasy community is. See a home run, a lot of times they'll chase it. Brad Miller at $2,200 is appealing against R.A. Dickey, though. Not a big sample size against the hasn't exactly overwhelmed. 9 plate appearances, 0 strikeouts, so you can put the ball in play. At $2,200, a nice punt if you're looking to get some other big bats in your lineup, and a guy like Clayton Kershaw. In the outfield, Joey Bats, $4,500, holds platoon advantage over Drew Smyly, so you got to consider him. Steven Souza can crush a mistake, so R.A. Dickey can be occasionally homer prone. Can't consider him in GPPs as a home run chase, but those are about the only options that I'm really considering in the outfield or offensively in that one. Got 3 games left to break down. Colorado, Arizona. Your biggest betting favorite of the day here is the Arizona Diamondbacks and Zach Greinke, the only ones that are over -200, checking in at -210, according to Pinnacle Sports. Greinke, $900 cheaper to roster than, so does give you a little bit more salary flexibility. Not a lot, but if you're looking to be a little bit different in GPPs, that is an option, and is a secondary cash games option. I would sandwich him, or I would put him after Kershaw and Iglesias. Obviously, I think Greinke is a more talented pitcher than Iglesias, but when factoring in salary, if you're moving off Clayton Kershaw, it's because you're looking to load up on bats, tack things a little bit differently there. I think Kershaw is pretty much a must start in cash games, pretty close to it. But Greinke makes for a strong GPP play in that main slate there at FanDuel at $10,100. The Rockies just don't hit on the road. They do have some new faces in the lineup, but by and large, their key contributors are back, and guys like Charlie Blackmon just have not hit consistently away from Coors Field. Catcher, one of my favorite plays of the day at any position, Wellington Castillo at $2,300. I'll be sliding him into my cash games. I'll be sliding him into my GPP lineups. Crushes lefties, and really thrived when he arrived in the desert last year after bouncing around a little bit. Started the year with the Cubs, spent a very brief period of time with the Mariners, and then ended up in Arizona where he raked. Should give Jorge De La Rosa some fits. De La Rosa struggles with right-handed batters. Paul Goldschmidt, God love him at $4,800 at first base in FanDuel contest. Because Joey Votto's $900 cheaper, expecting Votto to have higher ownership than Goldschmidt. Might be some fear that Goldschmidt's not going to have the ducks on the pond there with A.J. Pollock suffering that gruesome elbow injury that's going to sideline him possibly for the entirety of the season, but still really like Goldie. Not really into any of the second base options. Nolan Arenado, his bat did play outside of Coors Field last year, but I'm not using him in a righty-righty matchup against that Greinke, not when you've got other options priced around him that just have better matchups. At shortstop, not using anyone from this contest. Trevor Story did have a nice spring, but I'll go ahead and wait to use him when he's at Coors Field. And in the outfield, note of the Pollock injury that takes him out of play. Charlie Blackmon's bat didn't travel to the road last year. Carlos Gonzalez did hit for power on the road last year, but not looking to use him in a matchup against that Greinke. You can consider David Peralta in some off-the-wall stacks maybe, especially if he slots second or cleanup. Not really sure where he's going to hit in that lineup because it is a lefty on the hill against them, but the expectation is that he's going to play every day. Was below average hitter against lefties, so you're not looking to use him as a solo shot, but can consider him in stacks just to get that lineup synergy and kind of pile up points if bad Jorge De La Rosa shows up. Maybe you could use Yasmani Tomas if you think the power is going to translate this year. He looked awful last year, though. I'm not considering him. Gerardo Parra, going to like him this year, but not today, not against that Greinke. So for this contest, stocks at the Oakland Athletics in Oakland. So you're looking at a good pitcher's ballpark. Chris Sale, one of the best starters in the game, can really shove it. But the A's didn't strike out a lot against left-handed pitching last year, which caps Sale's upside a little bit. Is opposing Sonny Gray, which looks like an Aces matchup, but Sonny Gray's velocity crumbled as the season went along. Didn't like seeing the slider usage go down. Not a Sonny Gray fan at all. Will not be using him until I see some pitch FX data that shows that fastballs come back and that he's using his slider a little bit more. At the same time, not looking to use many hitters from this contest. Not looking to use Stephen Vogt in a lefty-lefty matchup. That's assuming he even gets playing time against Sale. Possibility that Josh Phegley starts behind the dish since he did get a lot of starts against lefties last year. Not really considering Alex Avila or Diana Navarro at catcher for the White Sox, whoever starts there. Jose Abreu's a minor consideration just because he's such a talented hitter. And I do think there should be some concerns about the declining velocity last year for Sonny Gray. Makes him somewhat interesting in GPPs, but the fact that they're playing at the O.co Coliseum really takes a bite out of any hitters that you're considering. That includes a guy like Jose Abreu. Maybe you can consider Todd Frazier for the same reasons. Big power. If you think that Gray is going to struggle this year because of declining velocity, because he experienced some dead arm here at the end of the spring, you can consider Frazier, but again, I'd like them all a lot more if this was in Chicago. It's not, so I'm not a big fan of any of these guys. Shortstop, you could punt with Jimmy Rollins depending on where he slots in the lineup. Looks like he's going to be batting second, so does warrant some moderate consideration, especially if you think that the White Sox are going to jump on Sonny Gray. Again, don't love the ballpark, though, and Rollins long in the tooth. And in the outfield, Adam Eaton is the guy that I'm most intrigued by, $2,900, nice table setter. Again, if Sonny Gray struggles, if the velocity's not there, if he's not using his slider, Eaton stands to benefit as the leadoff hitter for the White Sox. Going to get on, set the table for the guys behind him. Not a guy who's really a power hitter anyway, so the ballpark isn't going to hurt him quite as much with its home run suppressing ways. Moving on to the final contest that I'm going to be discussing here, we got the reigning National League Cy Young Award winner, Jake Arrieta, towing the rubber against fellow flamethrower Garrett Richards. The Cubs' offense is loaded, so forget about using most pitchers against them this year. Jake Arrieta pressed too close to Clayton Kershaw for me to like him, and facing a good pitcher for that matter. I'm not to say that Kershaw isn't facing Tyson Ross, but not looking to use Arrieta to save $300. You could in GPPs, but I just think there are better options. At catcher, we've got Miguel Montero. Assuming he gets the start, it'll be interesting to see what the Cubs lineup looks like. I would imagine Montero will get the start. Better pitch framer. It looks like Schwarber is going to be starting in left field. Soler is going to be the odd man out here with Dexter Fowler re-signing with the Cubbies, and with that outfield just filled the way that it is. Anthony Rizzo, decent consideration just because he's a super talented hitter and holds a platoon advantage against Garrett Richards, but there are some softer pitchers to pick on. First base is deep. I don't think you need to spend $4,100 to get Rizzo. If you want to stack, that's certainly a consideration. $2,700 Ben Zobrist is intriguing based on price tag alone. The switch hitter is going to hit probably in a top 5 lineup spot, according to some reports right now, which puts him in a prime run scoring position in a very talented Cubs lineup. Hits lefties and righties well, so will hold a platoon advantage against whoever comes into the game as a reliever as well. So that's a nice little added benefit of him being a switch hitter. Chris Bryant coming off of a sensational rookie season, $4,100 though. I think you got some better options at third base, but can turn around a fastball, and if Garrett Richards misses fat with one of his blazing heaters, Chris Bryant's the type of guy that can make a mistake painful. So GPP consideration for the home run power, but not a cash games consideration because there are better options. Shortstop, Addison Russell had a nice spring. Promising young player, but not a great matchup. Probably going to hit down order as well as he did most of last year. So pass on that position. Not loving Andrelton Simmons for the Angels either. Really not going out of my way to pick on Jake Arrieta, which means, sorry, Mike Trout, you are a GPP-only consideration on opening day. We've seen him taking Felix deep a couple times on opening day, so we know Trout can certainly get the better of even the best pitchers in the game. That alone makes him a GPP consideration, but at $5,000, I'm not looking to fire more than a single bullet on Mike Trout. Jason Hayward going to hold the platoon advantage over Garrett Richards since it is a lefty-righty matchup with Hayward batting lefty, Richards being a right-handed pitcher. Ditto for Schwarber. Schwarber does have some swing and miss in this game, but man, when he connects, he can really put a charge into the ball. Those guys, GPP considerations for me. $3,500, not a bad price tag for Schwarber, but outfield is deep. If he had catcher eligibility, I would certainly like him a lot more. Otherwise, not really liking anyone else in this contest. Cole Calhoun going to hold the platoon advantage, but just not good enough against right-handed pitchers to consider using him against an elite right-handed pitcher like Jake Arrieta. That's going to wrap things up for this lengthy MLB slate breakdown. 12-game slate, a lot of games to go through. Hopefully today's advice helps get you some big dough here in these daily baseball contests on DraftKings and FanDuel. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for some more advice in the form of articles or cheat sheets. Get on our forums and see what's going on there. Ask some questions, get some advice. A lot of good information on the website. We're here to help you all season squash your competition. Until next time, I'm checking out. Follow me on Twitter for some updates headed up to first pitch tomorrow and basically every day. Posting on there is at BChat50, and definitely follow the at DF's Cafe Twitter handle as well, where we'll be posting content and getting some stuff out there to help you win some dough. Take care and good luck on opening day.